This is Sam Collins and Norman Papoose on Meet in the Middle Chronicles with Galveston County Sheriff Henry Trochesset. In this last segment, many individuals are concerned about school safety. Unfortunately, we have come into this mass shooting conversation nationwide because of what happened in Santa Fe. We talked briefly in the last segment about apprehending the individual, and I know you can't go into much details, but many individuals are probably concerned about the school safety this year. School has just started a month ago. What is being done to ensure the safety of the students throughout Galveston County? And I know you mentioned you have hired another 27, so if you want to expound on that a little bit.
Yeah, Clerk CCISD, Texas City ISD, and Dickinson ISD all increased their numbers for their full-time employees. So there are more uniformed, armed individuals in each one of those schools. And actually, Santa Fe is increasing their numbers. I think Galveston, Hitchcock started their own school police ISD. So responding to the scene, having people on the scene at the time is probably one of the most and fastest ways you can improve with school security.
Now, is the sheriff department backing up Hitchcock now? Because I know they just had a chief right now there.
Actually, he's still wearing our uniform because they don't have all their paperwork quite ready with TCO. Okay. So, yes, sir. Okay. And he came from the sheriff's office.
So, one of the defenses against having guns at school is metal detectors. And I worked in nightclubs where we had metal detectors, 2 sets of them, and we still had shootings. What is as a father and as a law enforcement official, what do you think about metal detectors? Because they provide a high degree of safety. The best way to not let guns in school is to make sure that they are prevented at the front door, not inside. But at the same time, it lends a certain aura to the student body that we have to be in a school that needs metal detectors. It's a delicate balancing act. What do you think?
My granddaughter was in that school at the time of that shooting. She was several doors down from that occurred. Her best friend was murdered by the individual that's locked up in the Galveston County Jail at this time. Someone that spent the night at my house, someone that swam in my pool. With you, I'm not sure that shootings can still occur. Is it a false sense of security? A little overboard? Maybe. Because if someone wanted to do something, he don't have to do it at the school. And the community needs to understand that. Not just this incident, but several discussions I've had, and almost everybody clean across the board. Parenting is number one when it comes to any of this. Is the individual sick? I don't believe so. I think he's evil. I think he's just evil. And people try to rationalize why some individual would do something like that. I'm not sure that a rational person would ever be able to do that, because you or I wouldn't do something like that. Wouldn't be the outcry we would be looking for. Should our schools be secure? The best that we can do, yes, sir, no doubt. Our children are our future. Our grandchildren are our future. It's tragic. Is it going to be the last one? I hate to say it. No. Is it the gun? No. I hate to say it. Go do the math. Mm-hmm. How many individuals in the United States were killed by firearms? Not just the schools. And how many individuals are killed by car crashes? But there's no outcry to take all the cars from people.
Right. And I got to say this because, I did work in nightclubs where there were shootings, and I've stared down the bat barrel of a 9mm in my face. That was in London 13 years after they banned handguns. So when people talk about banning guns and the violence is going to get taken away and all that, don't tell that to me, because that was not my experience. We had to have metal detectors there, not for knives, but for guns. You know, and I saw more gun violence in London nightclubs than I saw when I worked in D.C. in a nightclub when it was the murder capital of America, or when I worked in Chicago in bars. So,
Well,
yeah.
one of the things, you know, we talk about as parents, grandparents, law enforcement. My wife is a third grade teacher. My wife was my sixth grade crush. I mean, I just love her like I love to breathe. Hi. But my wife has
He's
trouble.
getting bailed out like that.
my wife has trouble backing up at night in the dark. The last thing I would want for her to have is a pistol in the classroom, or have to shoot across a crowded lunchroom with individuals running. I wouldn't trust that she would be able to handle that pressure.
So she shouldn't have one then.
Even law enforcement sometimes has difficulty under pressure. I think that was in Florida. The one officer didn't go in when he's paid to go in. So I wanted to know, what was your position on arming teachers? You know, I have my license. I go to the arms room and shoot. I don't ever really want to have to shoot anybody, and I don't think officers wake up in the morning saying, "I just want to kill somebody today or shoot somebody."
I don't.
But
Too much
with
paperwork.
with the idea of arming teachers, what's your position on that?
Depends on what the teacher's qualifications are. There are retired law enforcement that are teachers.
There's a lot of the retired military.
Think about the military. My son's.
But as a sheriff, when you go into that building and you see all these people shooting, how are you going to be able to tell the difference?
Well, that dynamic needs to come into play. That they need to be trained. I don't think anybody should know at that point who's got the gun. Maybe the law enforcement should know that there are 2 teachers in the school or 5 teachers in the school that have a firearm. But they need to understand the minute law enforcement arrives at the scene, they stop. There's a point where they need to stand down, put everything away, to where no one at that point will know what they were doing until the investigation occurs. If their background and their qualifications and their training and their continued training will allow them to do that, I see no issue with it. If I retired tomorrow, you just told me, yeah, maybe one more term. Okay, if I retired and said I want to be a school teacher, you think 35 or 40 years of law enforcement, would you have an issue with me in the school with a gun?
Well, I think having more guns, I'm concerned about having more guns in the building and in the school.
It's not the gun that's in the building, it's what can be done with it. Because there's a lot of guns in the arms room. Is it the firearm in the building?
I mean,
No.
I understand it's
It's
just
the
like
circumstances.
individuals. Yeah, the individual that controls the gun controls what happens. But there are, kids, if teachers don't properly secure, I guess they would have to keep them on that person.
Yes, sir. I think they should keep them on their person and hid.
Yeah.
And I've flown 24, 25 states in the union picking up inmates, arrests from other states. And nobody knew I was on that plane with a firearm.
Well, again, the other issue that comes into play is how that judgment decision of how and when that weapon should be used, and at what point does things escalate to the point that they have to use it.
Deadly force for deadly force. I mean, again, that's something that needs to be trained and taught and explained. Do they know their dynamics? If there's a fight, am I going to just break up the fight by pulling a pistol? No.
Well, some parents will be afraid that may happen.
Well,
Yeah, but they should be properly trained to make sure that doesn't happen.
that's correct.
Exactly. I want to get to the events, the tragic day. You know, and for us, that's like a 9/11, where were you kind of thing. And I remember my wife telling me that there was a shooting at Santa Fe, and the first thing that went through my head was I prayed. I was like, please let this be a false alarm. Then when it wasn't a false alarm, I said, please let this be just some kind of, and then it just kept escalating
Growing.
and You know, you almost want to run to school. You know, you almost want to. You think about that when you send your kids to school and you drop your kids off at school. I never thought about that. And then this year, I'm dropping my kids off at school, and I look around. I do. Where were you when you got the initial call?
I was on a cruise ship celebrating my wife and I's 35th wedding anniversary. And it was 7:30 in the morning. My son called. I got a call from my son because my granddaughter was in the school, because she was at the time trying to hide texting her father saying somebody's in the school shooting it. And it took 2 days before I could get off of that cruise ship.
Must have been pretty emotional.
I never left the room. I was on my iPad, my phone, back and forth communication with other sheriffs, other agencies. Ted Cruz, I mean, what can we do to help you? What's needed? That was tough not being able to leave that area. But I never left that room till about 6 at night. Matter of fact, I was on that iPad so much, I was turned off. My data was turned off, and I had to call and have it turned back on. I guess AT&T thought somebody hacked it. And then 24 hours later, they turned it off again because I was on that device so much.
So when you finally got back, what was the mood of your men?
That's tough. And think about the time they had to spend, especially our ID techs, in the room assisting the FBI with those rooms. It's tough. Let's just say we sent them to some debriefing and some counseling.
I imagine that's still going on.
Yeah.
You can't, yeah. I mean, it's perfectly understandable.
Yes, sir.
So that has happened. Have you gone back and reviewed your plan? I'm sure you had a plan for such an eventuality, you know, some sort of mass shooting. And have you come to a conclusion about what went right and what you could improve on?
Yes, and but I would prefer not to discuss that until the event's over with, the trial's over with. I've been asked to come speak in Nevada. I've been asked to speak in other conferences, school resource conferences, alert training, which a lot of our deputies take. Matter of fact, all of our deputies that work in the school districts. What can we do to improve that? What needs to be worked on? And at this point, I just soon hold that back until after that trial.
Okay. Well, what could you tell us as far as, was there anything outside the boundaries that you didn't expect that occurred that day? Or what surprised you as far as, you know, community response, positive, negative?
Oh, no, we had overwhelming response from law enforcement. Overwhelming, the number of that. And, you know, Santa Fe ISD has their own police department. So that was their scene. We were in a support mode. Mm-hmm. They have their own police department. That was one of their officers that was shot, that was taken to the hospital. And we, like I say, we were in a support mode. And it's still their jurisdiction.
Okay. Yeah, but you're holding the accused.
Well, the sheriff in every county holds yes, sir.
And so
And we are investigating the capital murders.
Okay. And when do you expect this to come to trial?
Well, that would be something you'd probably have to take it up with the district attorney's office.
Okay. So when do you expect your investigation to be complete?
You know, there might still be the trial set, and we still might be getting information.
So
technically, we've given it. Matter of fact, he's already been indicted. So.
Mm-hmm. So at this point, you have a continuing investigation, but the district attorney has information that could lead to trial.
Oh, well, we've given him the packet, yes, sir.
Okay. All right.
Well, again, we We thank you and those on the front line that go into those situations. I know it's difficult for the men and women that had to see that, and also the men and women that have to make the decision to run toward danger instead of away from it. So I don't think that there's really a number. So when we talk about budgets, because I'm a finance guy, sometimes it could be interpreted that he just cares about the number.
Go ahead, run with it.
I understand that we can't put necessarily, we say we can't put a number on safety, but the reality is we're just limited. We can't pay, it would be nice for everybody to have a private security detail, but it's just not efficient. So there has to be a balance, but we do support those men and women in blue that have to do a very difficult job. I think there is work to do to make sure that we improve relationships. Sometimes that
There's always room for improvement, Sam.
yeah, to get better. We always can get better. So hopefully that there will be some opportunities there to address some of the issues that. Again, with our young people being our greatest asset, they're the future. Mm-hmm. We have to protect them. We have to give them, I can't even imagine being in the third grade and concerned about, police officers walking around with guns. I mean, the worst thing that I could think of in Hitchcock was a after-school fight. I remember in junior high that was a kid that was kind of tough kid. He ended up beating up one of our friends, and afterwards our friend said, well, I didn't run. We said, fool, you should have. You shouldn't have fought. That after school 5 o'clock fight, you should have ran. And, sometimes you just have to stand up to bullies, but there were some kids that were just, man, you should have just ran. You took a whipping. But,
I broke every bone in his hand with my face. Yeah.
Well, I got stabbed when I was 16.
So that's kind of like one of the worst things that I could think of, an after school fight. But now these kids are really dealing with serious problems, social media, and this perception of everybody else's life is perfect and mine is not.
You're correct.
Those are things that we seriously need to address, again, on the front end, so the kids don't come to school
that's
with
how
that.
life is.
Yeah, come to school with so much pent-up frustration and anger toward the world.
And again, we discussed it earlier, parenting. Mm-hmm. You've got to be able to raise the kids so they understand. What you're seeing on there is just their snapshot at that one moment of their special time. That's not their life. That's just one snapshot. And you're seeing 20 snapshots. And you've got those snapshots too. But that's not their whole life. And they don't understand it. And we got to get out of the mode of, I think the worst thing we ever could have done. Everybody got a participation trophy. Oh, yeah. Some people aren't going to be the best.
They're not going to be the winner. Yeah.
That's correct. And they've got to learn how to fail. Yeah. They never were taught no. Yeah. You've seen as well as I do. I'm going to look right here and say it. The lady that was the tennis.
Serena Williams.
She had a meltdown. She had a meltdown like a 2-year-old. She had a meltdown like a 2-year-old. She should have been. This said, "You're the judge. I'll beat it on the court." She had a fit. She threw her racket down. She broke it. She melted down like a child. Yeah.
Like you're gonna have to come back on that one.
Well, no. But I understand what you're saying. I'm not saying you're wrong. But I think the real issue was the people, especially my age, said McEnroe did a lot worse.
Men do a lot worse.
But we do. I'm not saying people don't have meltdowns, but if they've ever been taught that sometimes you lose.
Yeah.
Sometimes life doesn't go your way. You don't have to act in this manner, but they outcry in the wrong way. And they do.
Well, I think that was a male-female issue where men have gotten away with a lot more than what she did. Yeah. Now, I'm not saying her behavior
nobody expected
was
it from her. Maybe
that's what it is. The expectation. Nobody expected it.
Nobody expected it.
But she's just as competitive as a McEnroe or someone else.
Very
so and she's probably the world's kind of greatest greatest athlete, male or female. She's been so dominant so long. So I understand, you know, sometimes I've been around a lot of, let's say, prima donnas that think that everybody's supposed to give them what they want. But I don't think that's what that was.
But we've got kids like that.
Yeah.
2, 3, 4 years old that have never been taught. And then when they come to work in certain areas and they're told no, or they don't get the promotion, they can't handle it. They don't know how to handle negativity.
The stress of no.
They don't know how to handle not getting their way. And oh man, when I was a kid, that was just part of life.
Oh,
Because there was a whole lot more times I was told no than I ever was told yes.
Yeah, well, I think we were all raised in the era where the look just got you, the right message.
Thank you.
And there was a level of respect for authority too. I think we took the discipline out of schools and the community. There's a breakdown between
And we took God out of it.
parents and teachers and administrators. I think we have to get that back. We have to get that community back. That we have to save every child on planet Earth until we come to a conclusion that every child is worthy of supporting, and every child doesn't have that home environment that gives them that foundation. So they spend 6 to 8 hours at school. That's the safety net for them. The school, and I'm not trying to pawn off the responsibility because, as a father, husband, a parent, and community member, when kids come with me, whether they go on a trip with me, whether they come to my house, they understand there's rules and guidelines.
Thank you.
And, besides my wife, if my wife has to call me, and most of the time she doesn't, but if she calls me into the situation, they understand that there's a cost.
There's consequences
There's
to their actions.
But the majority of the time, the rules are set in the beginning, and we don't have those circumstances. When they get there, they know Mr. Sam. When he says it the first time, he means it. And
correct.
When I pick up individuals, children, to go with me, I say, hey, they can go with me, but I'm gonna treat them just like mine. If you don't want me to treat them like mine, then they can't go with me. I'm gonna love them, but I'm gonna discipline them too. Discipline is love. It's not abuse. Right. But I think we just have a thin line there.
I agree.
All right, so we got off a little tangent there, but we're back. But Sheriff, we want to thank you so much for coming.
My honor.
We hope that it was painless, and you do a great job for us. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, sir.
I'm glad to do it, and it's my honor. Like I say, born and raised here, and I have 9 grandkids now, so we'll see if we can't
I mean, you're older.
keep the family safe
Well,
and the community.
thank you very much. We will be back next week at Meet in the Middle Chronicles, where we will be interviewing the Democratic candidate for Texas Representative. Have a nice day.